What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 31 Days of Horror. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yes, 31 Days of Horror Volume 7, Day 20 is coming at you live. Alright, guys, so we're on the home stretch, and I figured, why not in Day 20 get right into the mood for Halloween with a Halloween-based anthology film. Released by Scream Team, releasing in 2019. It is called Spine Chiller. Yes, I've reviewed so many Scream Team releasing films over the last bunch of years. It's crazy, come to think of it. So, but yeah, I thought, haven't done an anthology on the 31 Days of Horror. Why not do a Halloween-based one, right? Only makes sense. All right, so Spine Chiller is kind of like in the vein of like a Trick or Treat type anthology film where the stories kind of bleed into each other and then there's a resolution. It's not, it's a little bit more linear than Trick or Treat, but it has the same type of idea as a Trick or Treat. It's not your typical based anthology where it's like segment, wrap around, kind of thing, right? It's kind of different like that. So Spine Chiller 2019, getting into the premise of this one. Basically, our first story is called Devil's Night, and it involves a news anchor in the beginning of this short. He's a news anchor, and the company he works for basically kind of forces him to dress up like a ghoul and play this ghoul on TV and stuff like that. And he kind of explains what Spine Chiller is. Spine Chiller is basically an annual Halloween dance that comes through every year for the small town for people to go to and dance at and stuff like that. But the thing is with Spine Chiller, every year on Halloween, people either go missing or wind up dead during the Spine Chiller dance or around those times and things like that. So essentially what happens in this one, someone ends up getting attacked by like this witch kind of ghoul type monster and stuff like that. Again, this is an anthology film. It runs very, very short. It's only about just over 73 minutes. So the shorts are pretty short in this. So basically the second story is called Don't Go in the Basement. And it's about this babysitter who goes in the basement, right? And she finds this jar, like a canned jar. So there's got something in there. And she realizes that it may have a heartbeat. And of course, shit doesn't go well from there. That involves kind of like a zombie type killer type deal and stuff like that. Then the third short is called Rotten Apples. It's basically about this couple, maybe late teens, something like that. And, they're sitting around the house. He's wanting to watch, the horror movie marathon and stuff. She's bored as shit, but she doesn't want to hand out the candy. So they take it upon themselves to make their own type of candy and fuck with the kids by putting in like nails and, glass and shit into the candy and shit like that. And it doesn't go so well for them. This one involves kind of like, it was very reminiscent of the scene in the original Halloween where Michael Myers puts on, the white sheet and makes himself like a ghost. Well, that involves kind of like this killer in that aspect like that. And then the last story is called Baby's First Halloween, where our main character, who's actually from the first short too, he's ordered this werewolf costume. Anyways, he puts on the werewolf hands and stuff, and then he realizes he can't get them off. So he starts to eventually turn into a werewolf and shit like that. So he kind of becomes the killer and shit like that. And after the fourth short is done, this is where the stories kind of bleed together and where, everybody from these stories is actually all people that are invited to the Spine Chiller dance. So these characters, they start to merge and they end up at the Spine Chiller dance where we get a resolution to, who's doing the killing and what's going on and things like that. So that is the whole premise of Spine Chiller. Without giving, everything away, because anthologies are hard to talk about at times because the shorts are so short and this overall product is very short too. Like I said, it runs just over 70 minutes. So my thoughts on the overall product, basically my thoughts are it has a very good Halloween atmosphere to it. Every short does feel like Halloween. It does managed to capture that in everything, which I like. It's got a very original synth score that I really enjoyed. I thought the synth score was fantastic. Now, I'm assuming that this one is based in the 80s because everybody in this film is talking on a regular house phone, right? So it doesn't specifically tell you it's set in the 80s, but everybody's costumes and the way everyone looks and the way the synth soundtrack is and how there's no new technology in it, it's got to be based in the 80s, which I kind of like. you know, I hate these movies. I've mentioned this many, many times over, you know, tons of reviews I've done where, you know, these filmmakers are making these throwback films and they always want to tell you that their movie's set in a specific 80s year by cramming it down your throat over and over again throughout a film. They don't do that in this one. They don't even tell you it's set in the 80s. You just kind of have to figure it out. Like one of the characters in the film, I think in Rotten Apples, the kid's wearing a Kiss shirt. It's like a Creatures of the Night shirt, which is an awesome album cover. And, you know, you kind of get the point. Like, it's got to be from the 80s. Like, who the fuck is still wearing that type of shit? So, but, you know, all in all, you know, the shorts, they move by very, very quick. So it feels like a very quick watch. When it comes down to the kills in this, not overly the goriest, not really the bloodiest and stuff. I was kind of disappointed with that. It kind of shows its budget in that aspect. And which is kind of disappointing. I do like the fact that like everyone is being killed off kind of like by different looking killers and stuff like that. Now, when it comes to, I guess, the wraparound, which is, you know, essentially the spine chiller dance is where everything kind of gets exposed and gets explained and stuff like that, kind of, it doesn't really even make a whole lot of sense. I mean, it's kind of vague in what they're doing, and I think the resolution is kind of like, really? I don't know. It felt kind of flat for myself. I wish they had it done a lot more. I just honestly wish it was a little bit more gory, to be honest, because you have so much potential to bring out the stories with the kills and accentuate with that, because when you have such shorts, you got to do something with them, right? So that was a little bit disappointing. But yeah, I think the one thing that really holds this thing together is the synth soundtrack. The synth soundtrack is actually really cool in this. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, you know, kind of disappointing to say the least in this one. You know, really, I like the idea. And there's been a lot of anthology films that have kind of tried to do the trick or treat thing with not the same success. I get it. Trick or treat is something that is very unique, and it's very hard to kind of beat that type of anthology film if you're not going to do a standard story by story wraparound type thing. But the thing is, you have to just have better writing. You have to have better stories that are kind of going on. Everything in here is kind of been done before. You know, and I think that's the main problem with the anthology is that everything that's happening you've kind of seen before, and you're just like, okay, there's nothing really kind of sticking out here. You know, the acting overall in the film actually is pretty decent. It's not too bad. Actually, the guy that plays the news anchor in this, he's from the first and kind of in the last story, like the wraparound and stuff. He's actually really good. I like his tone in the film. He delivers his lines very well. I think he's probably one of the best actors in the film. So the acting overall is not bad. It's shot well. It sounds good. But I think just the originality of the stories and, you know, the resolution to the whole film with the spine chiller, just with things kind of wrapped up a little bit better within that part of it, because, you know, I like the idea, you know, spine chillers is dance, you know, and people are getting picked off at this time, but there's not really a lot explaining stuff. And I will say, when it gets to the dance itself actually looks very, very weak. Like, there's like nobody there. It doesn't even like the you know, the actual feng shui of it, you know, like the actual look of it doesn't really look that cool. The shorts actually do look a little bit more Halloween-y than the actual dance does, which is kind of shitty, because you think at that point, that's when things are going to start to get really real and stuff like that. But all in all, it's not a bad anthology. I'm going to come in at about a 6 out of 10 on this one. I recommend it for a watch. It's not really that bad. It's not wasting a whole lot of your time. Like I said, it runs just over 70 minutes, so it's not like you're going to be wasting all night in this one and stuff. So, but it's okay. It's okay for what it is. I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm not going to lie. I haven't really been overly disappointed with a lot of Scream Team releasing movies over the years, because they've done a lot of good stuff, and I really like to try and support these guys, but yeah, I guess we'll see with the next one. So anyways, guys, that is Spine Chiller Day 20 here. A little bit disappointing, but definitely worth the watch. If you're interested, if it sounds like something that's up your alley, give it a shot. I hadn't really heard many good things about it, and I think it's better than people were saying it was. I mean, most people were saying it was like a 1 out of 10. It's not that bad. It really is not that bad. It's got some good points to it. All right, guys, that's going to do it here for Day 20. Check you guys tomorrow on Day 21. And as usual, deuces!